So, obviously, I know your name, but just for the audience, how do you want to introduce yourself?
So my name is Chris Farrell, and I'm a traveler extraordinaire who's on the autism spectrum, and I have a unique goal, and that's to become the first person with autism to visit every country. And on my quest, I'm up to 91 countries and territories, and I've been on all 7 continents.
That's what I was just about to ask you next. And then, obviously, the obvious questions are, which one's your favorite?
Well, my personal favorite place in the world is a little island called Norfolk Island. It's a small island halfway between Australia and New Zealand.
Okay.
And when I mention it, people often think I mean Norfolk, Virginia, or Norfolk, England.
Yeah, I thought that straight away.
But no, it's Little Island is a very interesting history, and I'm not sure if you've heard of the mutiny on the Bounty, but many of the locals there are descendants of the Bounty mutineers, which came from Pitcairn Island, which is another small island in the South Pacific. But my 5 favorite countries are Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Iceland, and Peru. And Thailand's not far away. Thailand's one of my happy places.
Yeah. So what countries have you got left to visit that you haven't visited yet?
Well, I've been to 91 out of 241 countries and territories, so I have 150 more to go. I just did a fabulous month in the Middle East. I went to Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman. I was supposed to go to Iran on that trip and climb the highest mountain, but it was canceled the evening before leaving.
Is that due to the war?
Yeah.
So you're not afraid of challenging places then?
Nah. I've been to North Korea.
Yeah.
I've been to East Timor. I've been to Papua New Guinea. I've been to Antarctica.
And have you ever ran into any issues? People, the West are worried about certain things that they hear on media. Have you ever has it ever replicated itself? Because normally when we go on holiday, it's not what you think it was,
Yeah, well, the most challenging thing I've ever dealt with was being robbed at gunpoint in Guatemala.
Really?
Yeah, and that was halfway up a volcano. But
wow.
I've dealt with surprisingly few really challenging situations on my travels, but a recent one was at the Saudi Arabia-Kuwait border. There was a man who was demanding money from me, and then he tried to steal my travel rucksack. And but then, eventually he gave up and left.
Where was he from? Saudi Arabia?
He was either Saudi or Kuwaiti, but he had a Kuwait license plate. And what had happened was the border officials told me I couldn't walk across the border. I had to be in a vehicle. So I put my thumb out and this guy picked me up. But he was demanding money despite the fact that he only gave me a lift about 500 meters.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about the one on the mountain? Why did he pull out a gun? Like, was he waiting on the mountain or? Was
they know that travelers will climb this mountain, and so they wait in the bushes. So 2 guys originally jumped out. One had a large knife. One had a machete, or one had a pistol, one had a machete, and then a third guy jumped out of the bushes.
Yes.
But they stole my camera, but thankfully they didn't get my pictures because before the start of the hike, I pulled out my camera card and I stuck it inside my sock.
60.
So, was they very angry or was they
This one, yes.
this procedure sort of thing?
It seemed like it was more a procedural thing. I think it sounds like they've done this to other travelers.
Yeah.
They would have done it to you. If somebody else was with me, they would have done it to both of us. If there was a group of 8 of us, they probably would have robbed all of us.
Yeah.
But I think they got what they were expecting because I think they know that tourists aren't going to bring credit cards and passports and large amounts of cash up a volcano.
Yeah. So, what do you like to do when you go to these countries to signify that you've been there? Like, how do you put your mark on the countries?
Well, these days I love the feeling of being in a country. My favorite thing to do when I go somewhere for the first time is go for a walk. And then my next favorite thing is I like to master the public transport. Yeah, like
You mentioned you like to hitchhike as well.
yeah, yeah. I do a lot of hitchhiking in my travels. I've done some hitchhiking in Thailand as well.
Is there a reason for that, like, or is it just for the challenge or
Well,
the thrill?
Transport's expensive in many places. It's not so much an issue in Thailand, but cost of an 8-hour bus ride in Australia would cost at least $100.
Right.
So, and I've made a lot of new friends hitchhiking. I've had people take me out to dinner. I've had people take me on tours. I've had people invite me to stay at their homes.
Wow. That's amazing. You can make such powerful connections like that.
And yeah, a place like Chiang Mai is one of my happy places after a long slog in Europe or the Middle East or something like that. It's nice to be in a place where there's good food and cheap massages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I got a haircut and a shave the other day for the equivalent of about $6 US, which is especially helpful, you know, having only one usable arm at the moment.
So what are the next few countries that you plan to go to?
Well, I'm heading back to Australia on Thursday, and I'm thinking for my next country, maybe Vietnam. I've postponed Iran to next June, and hopefully during that time I'm going to see a bit more of Europe, because I have a lot of European countries to still visit. I did 10 weeks in Europe recently, and but I've also been looking at Vanuatu or the Solomon Islands.
Oh, I love the Solomon Islands. I knew a girl from there in Spain, and she looked so unique. Like, I've never seen anyone that looked like that. It was a very interesting place.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Hello. Okay.
So you can get great pad thai here for the equivalent of about $1.25.
Yeah. Okay. I've never tried this restaurant. And what do you like to do on the evenings in Thailand? Like, have you got any advice for people that want to travel to Thailand for the first time? What would some tips be?
I think my best advice for travelers to Thailand is that most things here are cheap. You know, massages, dental care, haircut and shave, things like that. I would say another piece of advice for Thailand is if you're gonna do an elephant tour, don't do one where they ride the elephants.
Oh, I agree.
It's bad for their backs. And
is there any scams that you've witnessed or not really?
not in Thailand, no. I've dealt with scams on other places like sleight of hand techniques with money in Bali, for example.
Sliding hands.
Or they count the money, but then they drop some, like, this will be the counter, they'll drop some on the ground, and that way it looks like they're still giving you the same amount.
Right. I haven't heard of that one before.
Yeah. So.
Wow. So, is there any countries you wouldn't want to go back to?
Can't say if there's any that I don't want to go back to, but like I've been in plenty of places where one trip is enough. Like North Korea was very interesting, and I had a great time, but due to the logistics and the expenses involved, I think one trip there is enough.
Yeah.
I'd go back another time if it was for like work or something, or if I had to write a story.
Yeah.
Other places that, as I always say, my 3 least favorite places in the world are Las Vegas, San Francisco, and Delhi. And other places I wouldn't particularly care to go back to are New York City and Hong Kong. Just, nothing terrible about them, but just I don't find them overly interesting.
A bit boring for you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting you say Hong Kong.
Yeah, I like Macau better than Hong Kong.
Yeah. What do you like about are you into nature or are you into the cities when you go to a country?
Well, I love nature, but I love cities as well, especially for their history. Europe is a great continent for cities.
Yeah.
Other places, like, I don't consider the U.S. to be a very good place for cities. The only U.S. cities I enjoy are Seattle and Washington, D.C.
Okay.
But yeah, like, India is another place where you don't go for cities. Delhi is pretty boring and polluted.
Yeah.
Kolkata is a little nicer.
So if you go into India, you say to go to the beach areas more.
Yeah, or the nature areas. Like next time I go to India, I want to go to Ladakh, which is in the north.
Yeah. I'm thinking about going to India, but I've got to get myself ready for the challenges. Because I met someone the other day and they were saying, if you're going to go to India, just like be prepared to give yourself to the country, because what you think you have to let go of and you have to become.
Yeah, well, India is what I call an overload of all five senses.
Wow.
Yeah, it's...
Explain that a bit more.
Yep, well, it's loud, it's frenetic, it's smelly, but it's colorful. The food's good. The people are lovely. And it's one of those places I describe as like your ultimate love. And no matter how much of a pain in the ass she is, no matter how much she demands from you, you still love her to bits.
Yeah. Something I gotta try for myself. It's like Thailand. You can see how beautiful it is, but you don't see the feeling.
Yeah.
So you have to come here to feel it, and
Yeah.
you're making me feel like that's like India too.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite quotes is by Rudyard Kipling. It's first understanding to have of a country is to smell it. And that's very true, because smell is the one sense that you can't record.
Exactly, I agree.
You can take photos for sight, you can take videos for hearing, you can eat the food in another country for taste. Someone can bring you back a souvenir for touch, but you can't record smell. And India is one of those places that no matter how many places you've been to before, you haven't seen or experienced the world until you've been to India.
Yeah. A lot of people, like my partner said that she's been there before, and it's very men orientated, so she felt a bit uncomfortable as a woman.
I've heard stories, and I've heard stories both ways. I mean, I've heard stories of women going there and they've had incredible hospitality experiences. I've also had females tell me that they've had Indian men try to come on to them. But I think that's something that happens most places. I mean...
Okay. Do you ever travel with anyone?
I've only ever done 2 trips with a friend. One was a trip to Norfolk Island with my friend Allison, and another was a road trip in California with my friend Brian.
Wow.
I've had quite a few times where I've visited people in other countries, but I haven't really done a trip with them. Every time I try to do a trip with someone, they're not interested, or they talk about it and they never actually do it or anything. So.
Yeah. Because I find if you travel with someone else, it pulls you away from what you want to actually do, and the way you survive isn't always the way someone else survives.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I went to Norfolk Island with Allison, I had been there before, and I remember on that trip I felt like I couldn't just throw my bag down and go out and say hello to all my friends.
Yeah.
I had to let her adjust and all that. So.
Because you're so much used to traveling, did you find it difficult because you're so used to being so free?
Yeah, well, it was, especially because she was drinking a lot on that trip as well. So.
Right, yeah, you had to look after her, yeah.
You might notice I like to drink, but I tend to have a few, after my day's finished. And,
Yeah.
It's not like I drink and then get belligerent and all that, so.
Did you say it's your last night tonight or tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm taking the overnight bus to Bangkok, and barring any setbacks with my arm.
So if anything, right, we should go for a drink like in one of the last few nights down the bar area.
Yeah, well, I won't be here. Well, I'll have to see what the bus schedule's like, because my flight is from Bangkok tomorrow at 9 p.m.
Oh. So when are you leaving tonight or tomorrow?
Well, I'm waiting until my doctor's appointment's finished to book a bus because I don't want to book anything and then have to cancel it because they may say that I have to come back again for my arm. So I don't know yet.
So they're going to let you know today then, I suppose?
Yeah, but I'll see.
You want to explain what happened with your arm? Because that was another experience. That's like a traveler's experience, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was hiking up at Doi Poi, which is a mountain out west of here. And it was an unplanned hike, so I didn't bring my hiking boots or my trekking poles or anything. And it started raining heavily. I was in sandals. And then I fell backwards and I tried to catch myself. And I fractured 2 bones in my wrist. And I got to the park office and they called an ambulance for me. And the rangers and the doctor both asked me if I had fallen off a motor scooter. They said that was the common motor scooter injury, but I think if I was on a motor scooter, my hand would have been scraped up. I didn't have any scrapes on my hand because I fell in a patch of mud.
That's what I was trying to understand. So did you roll down the hill or did you just trip over?
Yeah, no, I just fell backwards like that and then I tried to catch myself.
No way. You're lucky you never banged your head then.
Yeah, well, I had my head up, but
You was by yourself, right?
Yeah, and I was trying to get out as quickly as possible because it started raining heavily and I had my expensive camera on my backpack.
Right. Was there any temples up there?
I don't know. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't, though. So this is the first broken bone I've ever had to deal with.
Wow.
And I was amazed that my hospital bill was the equivalent of only $75 US.
Yeah.
And 80% of that was the x-rays. Wow. If this happened in the US and they had to call an ambulance alone would have cost at least $4,000.
Wow. So, it's best to get it sorted here before you go back, isn't it?
Yeah. Or in Australia.
Oh, is Australia cheap as well?
Yeah, well, they have universal health care.
Right.
But I find it appalling that being an American citizen, that there's no universal health coverage. And so if you suffer a major injury or something like that, you're faced with the possibility of selling your car or even your home or something.
Yeah, it's really bad. And the same medication you can get in other countries for nowhere near the same prices.
Yeah, the two different types of painkillers they prescribe me cost the equivalent of about $1.50.
Terrible. So are you on painkillers for this still?
I haven't been taking them as much because at this point it's more annoying than painful.
Yeah. Okay. Can you move your hands and stuff?
A little bit, but it's.
Yeah. And is it swollen and stuff?
Yeah. Thankfully, the bone didn't break through the skin, and the doctor told me that.
Oh, yeah.
The doctor told me if that had happened, I would have needed stitches and he would have had to put me in antibiotics.
Wow. When the weight's down, does it feel more throbbing? When you've got it down like this?
Not really. I've been making a point to have it at a horizontal angle because they said that if I have it down too often, the bones could move.
Right. So, why didn't they give you a sling?
I do have a sling. It's back at the hostel.
Isn't it better to have, it'll help your arm just to rest them, won't it?
Yeah. Well, the sling can be a bit annoying as well.
Right. Okay. So that's going to put you back on your traveling now, I suppose, isn't it?
Not too much. I've always been resilient.
Right.
And this is only a minor setback. I've made a point to think about people I've met in the past, like we had a former neighbor who was born with only his left arm, and he was a one-arm golfer, and he eventually became president of the Society of One-Armed Golfers.
Wow.
And he could tie his shoes with one hand as well. And so it's been a little bit of an annoyance because it's more difficult to do things like have a shower and get changed and even go to the toilet, but I also think about a friend of mine's dad who had a stroke and he was 2 years old, and as a result, it was difficult for him to do many things with 2 hands, things like tying his shoes.
So you sound strong-minded, and you need this to be traveling.
Yeah.
So do you think traveling has brought some of these qualities out of you more? You know, like has it made you challenge yourself and face adversity and learn a lot about different people and cultures and what would you say as an overall of what you view people and different cultures?
What? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, like what is your view of different people and different cultures and meeting different people that's not understood your culture, and because you're American, a lot of people have an idea who they think you are, you know. So,
yeah, I think most people around the world are good people. I've met very few bad people.
Yeah.
And I feel that often people are curious about my culture as much as I am of theirs. And then there's also people that I've met who just see me as like a walking wallet.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Yeah, that's what I found as well. People, like when we're in our own country, you always hear either the worst or the best of people. You never just hear the in-between bits, so you either judge them as they're crazy or they're cool. You never just think they're just human like me, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So okay then, so we'll leave it there. Is there any final tip for people that haven't travelled much? Or would you say just get out there and do it, or?
That's my best advice. You know, you only live once, you know, and the world is big and beautiful. There's a lot of different foods to eat, a lot of different cultures to experience, a lot of different things to see. Just get out there and do it.
I agree.
Stop talking about it, just do it.
And the main reason why I've done this is because you're interested and you travel the world, but you've got an amazing Instagram and I wanted more people to see it. So tell everyone, tell my subscribers your Instagram, and then we can get more people to follow you.
Okay. So my Instagram is World Traveling Aspie, ASPIE, and aspie is someone with Asperger's, which is a form of autism.
Yeah, and you've got some amazing pictures and experiences there. So guys, go and check it out, and you can follow his story from there. Thank you for that, and I hope I didn't take up too much of your time.
Well, thank you very much.
All right then.